Hi, everybody. Darren and I were just getting ready to record a Sabbath Sunday segment, and we just heard the news. The news just broke that Burke Shelley, the bass player and singer of Budgie, has passed away at the age of 71. And Darren and I just wanted to say a couple words about Budgie and about Burke. It's a strange coincidence. I had my music challenge that I put up a couple days ago that I had 5 bands for 5 days, and Budgie was one of those bands that I picked. So I've been listening to a lot of Budgie in the last 5-6 days or so. And Budgie was one of those bands that when people talk about early influential proto-metal, early heavy bands, Budgie is a name that always comes up because they were really heavy for their time. I mean, the first Budgie album came out, I think, in 71, if I'm not mistaken, somewhere very early 70s. And for its time, it was really heavy. And Budgie was a 3-piece. In some ways, they always maybe kind of think of Rush because they had Burke Shelley had that kind of high-pitched voice. He was the bass player in the band. They sort of had that power trio sound going. And they were just a really cool early 70s heavy band. They went into the 80s. Probably their most recognizable album, I would say, is In for the Kill. You know, that's one of their. I also have Squawk on vinyl. Metallica brought them sort of national attention with covering. What did they cover? Bread Fan.
Horse and Brain Surgery.
Yeah.
Bread Fan. Yeah, those two.
Yeah, so it's really an unfortunate news, you know, that Burke Shelley has passed away at the age of 71.
Yeah, it's too young. They will be missed, even though they did continue to make music into the 2000s with Craig Goldie on the guitar. My favorite era is obviously the 70s. The good music in the 80s as well, but the 70s, of course, like you said, definitely one of those pioneering heavy rock bands that paved the way for the new wave of British heavy metal and so on and so forth. My personal favorite Budgie album, and it is hard to pick because they're all unique and they're all good, great. My favorite is Bandolier, and every song on it is great, but I really love, and they always had witty song titles.
That's for
that, but that's kind of like their trademark. But I love Napoleon Bonaparte 1 and Part 2. Apart from its clever song title, the music, it's a lengthy song, and it's over 7 minutes, but it's a lengthy song. It's a little almost progressive rock in a way, in the way that it kind of takes its course. But I just love that song. And Budgie was one of those bands that they stood out because they were unique, but they did correspond to the when we think of the heavy 70s, Deep Purple, Black Sabbath, Uriah Heep. Budgie fits in there. Grand Funk, an American band, obviously, but Budgie fits in there as a proto metal, I guess you could call them. But very important band. And Burke Shelley, like you said, a really unique voice, not unlike Geddy Lee in a way, on the higher range, but real melodic. And it's a shame.
Yeah, they did have sort of a jammy, heavy element, almost progressive element to them at certain times. And like you mentioned, the song titles, hotter than a Docker's armpit, or if I were Britannia, I'd waive the rules. They had great song titles. And they're kind of like they were a gateway band for me to the sort of more obscure, heavy 70s proto-metal stuff. When I first started getting past Deep Purple and Uriah Heep and Black Sabbath and those bands, Budgie was an early band that I discovered. There was actually a local college radio DJ in Allentown I wish I could remember his name. It was Muhlenberg's radio station, I believe, or it might have been Lehigh's. Either way, the guy was a huge Budgie fan, and he was always playing Budgie. on his station. And so Budgie was sort of a gateway for me. I would Budgie, and then I discovered Sir Lord Baltimore, and then Captain Beyond, and then I just kept going deeper and deeper. And yeah, and it's, even if you've only heard the Metallica versions of the songs that they covered, if you listen to the Budgie versions, they're pretty much as heavy as the Metallica versions.
There's a production quality differs. It's obviously a 70s production quality, but in that regard, I mean, it's real bass heavy. Look at Burke Shelley was, bass and vocals, but yeah, it's heavy. I mean, for its time, it's definitely. And it was sort of like the dynamic was the higher range of Burke's voice and the real low bottom end of the music. It was an interesting dynamic, kind of like their trademark, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
But like you said, when you started off, you were just coincidentally in a Budgie kick. It's like, yeah, if I get the urge to listen to a Budgie song, then it becomes the entire album. Then it's another album. And then, it's not uncommon for me to spend the entire week just listening to Budgie music. I get into Budgie's definitely one of those bands where I get into a kick. I'll listen to Budgie for a week or something, or 2 weeks, and it never gets old. They're one of those bands I can always listen to over and over again. And it always sounds cool, always sounds fresh.
Yeah, and they did do a lot of different things. All the albums are a little bit different.
Yeah,
they've got some stuff that's real jammy. They got some stuff that's more heavy. They've got stuff that's a little more, even some folky, more mellow acoustic type elements. So they did have a lot of different sound to them. And they are one of these bands that it's easy to forget how early they came out. I mean, I think the first album that they did was, I believe, 1971 or 1972. I mean, it was really, right up there with, when Black Sabbath and Uriah Heep and Deep Purple, were out there. So very tragic news here on the passing of Burke Shelley from Budgie. Darren and I just wanted to say a few quick words of him because we are Budgie fans, and a important proto-metal heavy 70s and very influential band to a lot of the new wave of British heavy metal bands and a lot of the early 80s metal bands also. So Burke Shelley, rest in peace.